Good evening, everyone. Today is January 29th. It's Monday at 7:02. This is the Halifax Finance Committee meeting. We're being taped by Area 58. On the agenda tonight, we have mail, reserve fund / line item transfers, meeting minutes, appointment with Jerry Elliott and Scott Materna, 7:15, appointment with Chief Roderick and Chief Viveros, revenue discussion, public participation, and adjournment. So, Jerry and Scott and John are here.
Thank you. This is Scott Materna.
Hi, Scott. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Forgive me.
Melinda Turley.
Gordon Andrews.
Mel Conroy.
The liaison for
us.
unfortunately, we haven't met.
And Bill McAvoy.
Thank you.
Down snow and ice.
Yeah, right.
And Kendra is our secretary.
Okay, if you want to sell the parks budget, we can do that first. It's much simpler.
Sure.
I only have 2 pages, so I don't know what you have, but
Line 131
yes,
and
correct.
132.
Right. There are no change in either one, I believe. One for 100 and one for 450, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And the town building maintenance budget. And I'll try to keep my sheets in order with yours. I have Article 4, line number 39 is the first page I have. I don't know.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's building committee clerical.
Right, 450, I don't believe there was any change from last year.
So
No, 39.
38, we have building committee clerical for 11,217.
For the clerk, oh, I'm sorry, we were on the expenses. That's the first one I have, is line 39, but I'll jump to that one. My apologies for that. What line item is that?
38.
Did you not put that in my packet?
Last page of mine.
Oh, okay, probably is. All right, that would be Sue's, the secretary's wages, 11,217.
Okay.
No hours have been increased. That's just her step raise included.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, you have to give me line items.
So line item 39 is building committee expenses,
Okay.
450.
And that's what I have, no increase from last year.
Okay. So then we go to line 40, which is town buildings custodial, $184,768, which is a decrease of $4,091, which is 2.5% decrease.
Right. The only thing we changed in that is the part-time salary that we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We've tried to increase his hours by 6 hours. He normally works 12. It's within our budget. We didn't increase the budget any with that. Hopefully with my leaving and reduction in Scott's pay, we'll be able to balance that out.
Okay.
We're able to use him more for the extra 6 hours on those days.
Okay.
And that was the reason behind increasing his hours.
Do you know what the total hours would be for that position?
18 hours.
Okay.
And
So that's still under the...
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
One of your sheets says there are 3 employees for summer help. That is incorrect. We've only had 2. So just to be aware that that was a typo.
Okay.
And not my one fingers either. So we'll only have, as we had in the past, 2 summer employees
Okay.
from July 1st through September 1st. And we use them for a variety of jobs, from custodial work to maintenance work, as we have in the past summers.
So the next line is the town building expense line 41, which is 39,100, and last year's number was 32,810, which is a $6,290
Right.
increase, 17.6%.
I don't know if there's any explanation on that, but software, Scott doesn't have any training on the software that we use. We're trying to put some money into that budget so he gets actual training on the software that we use for the maintenance department. That was an increase. Recent decorations, last year it was $450, I believe. I'm sorry, I would have had extra copies of my sheet. We're just anticipating the cost of those things for Holiday in Halifax, which is now in our budget, increasing somewhat. That's between light bulbs, wreaths, bows, anything associated with.
Wow, thank you.
I forgot to bring the books down, so that's why they don't have the budgets. I apologize.
Line item 3, electrician, electrical supplies. Again, depends on permits are waived. In the past year or so, we had to purchase permits through the town. I understand there's some permits fees being waived this past year in plumbing. It's possible that there might be enough in what they have upstairs in the building inspector's office that this budget could come down in those, but anticipating none, we're trying to keep those two line items, the plumbing and electrical, the same for 3,000. Hardware, we really increasing costs and buying nuts and bolts and things like that. A slight increase, $6,500 for paint lumber. We were able to do the schoolhouse 3 sides last year by including it and taking it out of our budget rather than contracting out. So that's a slight increase. We have trying to do the next 3 sides over the next 3 years, so we're buying hiding plank, saws and things like that. So that's a slight increase in that budget. Lowe's is anything we buy down there, from tools to lumber to ladders, any of that, and I believe that should have been about the same as last year. And miscellaneous is anything under the sun, like power tools, power washers, anything except snow blowers that should be in that budget that we try to compensate for.
Okay. You guys have any questions on that one?
Is there anything in the queue that is driving these numbers, or just, is this a cost of doing business that you foresee
Yes.
growing year to
Right.
year?
Jerry, is the miscellaneous usually that high?
Yes.
Is it the same as last year, or a little bit more?
Slight increase, I don't believe it's that high. I don't have last year's in front of me, I don't believe. Miscellaneous was 17.5, so
Okay.
we did.
Are there any places within your budget for the calendar year that you're in right now where you think that,
We're going to be shortfall? I don't believe so. I think we're going to make it through the year.
okay. Okay. I just didn't know if there were any projects that came up. that ate up
No
any-
furnaces, knock on wood, or anything else that we anticipate. We're not sure when we get into the air conditioning season come May, that we may have outside units that may go, but so far, we're running true to form and,
But that's part of your capital plan.
right, but that's also at
At
present.
at this budget comes up.
Right,
to-
I mean, that would be like an emergency type air conditioner, outside unit that we'd have to replace because it's on the old refrigerant and not the new one. But we would try to, keep it over until July 1st.
Okay. Your other 2 lines are the town building, so line 42, town building preventative maintenance, which is $48,101, which is even with last year's number.
All right, there are a few new added things in that side of the budget.
Okay.
elevator fees continue to go up no matter what. I mean, we just can't have any control between the state fees and the vendor's fees. Generators didn't go up, alarms were fine. Septic went up. We're now doing floor drains between the town barn and the fire station, so that's something we haven't picked up in the past that would be under that part of the budget. We just had the floor drains done down the town barn out of our budget this past year, which haven't been done since day one, 2001.
So, Chief, you're here too. Is that something that you have done at your?
Not yet, he hasn't had
You
that
haven't
done
had it
yet. Right. We're just
It's
in,
never been done ever?
no, not since day one.
Okay.
So we're anticipating doing that come after July 1st in our budget.
Okay.
It's not a huge expense, but it should be in that side of the budget versus coming out of our regular line item budget. Handicap door inspections, the last 2 years have been required by the state. That's normal for us.
Okay.
Custodial supplies went pretty much the same. And again, the plumbing and electrical fees are on that side also.
Okay.
Jerry, you realizing any savings with the new lift?
Absolutely, big time. Much easier to run, quicker, time savings.
As far as in your preventative maintenance budget, I know the past couple of years you've...
Right, we just got it recently inspected. We don't have any more major replacements or mechanical problems. A battery that comes out of our regular budget. Inspection comes out of our regular budget. No issues other than a fan belt that we might have to replace.
Are there any other pieces of equipment
That needed
that need-
capital planning? No. Other than a new truck. But that's a whole different...
That's an ongoing replacement.
Right, I mean, that truck that we're replacing coming this year is 2004. There's some major issues, so.
So for the town building preventative maintenance line, does that exclude any of the town buildings?
No, it includes, except the school, it includes all the town buildings.
Okay.
So from the fire station up to the recycle center, including the town barn, down to the village where the blacksmith shop and schoolhouse are.
So repairs to those,
Come
that
out
type
of
of
this,
infrastructure comes out of this?
yes.
Okay. Because I know that Steve Haywood is,
Talking about switching over the
The
heat and
windows
oil.
and
Right, and
the
that
heating.
might be a capital article for town meeting out of this budget, if it's approved.
So does that change make sense to both of you?
All right, we're on two different pages.
No,
All right.
on the change in the heating
Yes.
oil. Does that make
Only-
sense to bring it into your budget?
Yes, because we deal mainly with the burners. We go out and see how much oil is left there in order to notify them if there's a shortage or if buildings run out. We tried to do this many years ago, and Ralph just wouldn't hear it, so it just makes a lot of sense to have heating and oil on our side where we deal with all the furnaces and the boilers. Just becomes a clerical thing for us. It's a new budget for us on that side. Steve's going through a process of it, trying to evaluate. We're going to be in the same boat. We may end up coming back to you next year because we're short, not anticipating the cold spell that we had. So we've probably gone through a lot of oil this year that we didn't anticipate. I'm hoping that it'll be a little warmer and we'll be able to make it through.
So the last time the finance committee went through the gas and oil, we had Mr. Greeley come in, give us an update on what he thought the forecast was gonna be for the year.
Right.
And basically, we adjusted that line the
We're
previous
still
past 2
seeing...
years. We think there is a decent pad in that line for a spike to occur.
Yeah, this still is. I mean, I think last year...
Again, not having talked
Yeah.
with Steve, except that, he feels that it would be easier on my side where I deal with all the furnaces and that. So not having seen a packet, not having seen
Yeah.
we're open to suggestions.
Okay.
We're flexible enough. If it needs to be taken down, we take it down. If it needs to go up, hopefully that you'll,
Okay.
allow us to make that adjustment.
So Steve's desire to change some of those doors and those windows to cut down on the draft?
Right, and that won't happen overnight. It might be a 2-year process. Just like the lighting here at Town Hall, it's a 2-year process. We did one floor this year, we'll do the floor next year. So depending on the costs, we may end up only doing so many doors down there just because it's the amount of money available at town meeting.
But that's not coming out of your preventative
No,
maintenance line?
that'll be an article separate that
Okay.
will come before you and discuss it.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
No, I'd just like to welcome Scott and wish him luck.
Thank you. Welcome. I have one final question. The snow and ice expense for $3,000.
That doesn't change. That's,
What does that cover?
that covers my snow blowers, any repairs to the snow blowers, my ice melt for the walkways, any shovels I buy, and that's been in my account for a number of years now.
Yeah, we moved that over because there was an issue between who was in control of snow and ice total. And
Right, and it doesn't affect his budget for snow and ice, it's just what I buy for ice melt for all the buildings here in town, the snow blowers. If I need to purchase a snow blower that goes down or repair a snow blower, it comes out of my budget, out of that little. And most of the time, some of that money gets turned back. So whatever I don't use gets turned back every year.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Jerry, thank you for your years of service.
You
as well.
should, thank you, come and see some of the buildings at some point.
I'll
So-
work with you guys to make that happen.
Yeah, and likewise, the invitation is open to everybody. I mean, we put a lot of it into our budget, and we appreciate that, and we would certainly welcome you to see what we do for the town.
Okay.
And 1745 is the number, so just dial it in.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's way down.
Comparatively to the year where we but if they didn't fill, this is what we told them to make sure they fill. So if Scott's taking it over, then maybe it's better controlled because Steve took that on at the very end.
Right.
This was Jerry's last week.
I mean, actually,
So look at me for. I didn't do it, really.
I heard the wires.
Did you?
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll look at it now.
Guys, who wants to go first? Or do you both want to just sit up there?
Well, I don't care. I'm eating. They tell me.
All right, so public safety. So we'll just go in order, I guess. Does everybody know Chief Laderos and Chief Broderick? Okay. So line 44 is the police chief salary. That's contractual. The increase is due to a possible payout of vacation or sick time.
Vacation time.
So if we increase that line, we could push that increase out for another year, right?
No. No.
No?
I'm doing the math real quick, no.
It's just another 52 weeks, chief.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the next line is the line 45, police wages, $1,059,642. And this is contractual obligations and does not include any increases for openings for this fiscal year.
No, we don't need to.
Okay.
The opening, what's happened is there's somebody in the academy now, and that 11th band money is paying for salary. So
Okay.
There shouldn't be any change in that. That should be static for a long time.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Okay. So then next, line 46 is police training. The number is level funded at 8,714. So no changes in that.
I've noticed that number kind of creeping up the past few years, Chief. Do you think that's, as far as how much we're expending, are we turning over officers and that's why the training costs are going up year to year?
No, it's just the overall number's been the same for a while.
Right.
And that what's happening is the stuff we're buying is just getting more expensive.
Okay.
Ammo's more expensive.
Right.
We try to fit in as much training as we can. So if there's a particular class that comes up, I'll send a couple guys to it.
Yeah.
And those aren't things that happen every year. They're kind of individual things,
Yeah.
so it fluctuates within that.
Yeah. I just know there wasn't a whole lot between what was expended last year and this request, so I just wanted to make sure we're not shortchanging the officers on training. So.
No, we're paying for what we need to. Typically what I do is I wait till the end of the year to buy ammo.
Yeah.
So if there is, a little difference there, I can either buy more or less,
Okay.
to keep up with what we need. So I try to work with whatever's local.
Okay. The next line is line 47, police clerical. It's 45,386, and it's got a longevity number where it didn't have longevity there before.
That would be whatever's due.
Some contractual.
Wage and personnel.
Share techniques.
Yeah. Is it 10 years?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. So the next line is police expense, line 48, and that is level funded at 62,485.
Right. That may be, I'll live within it, but that may be a little tight this year because of the new person and equipment and stuff, but that's no big deal.
Okay.
That's what I have, so it'll be good.
And then the next line is line 49, station maintenance, 24,100, which is level funded and was a decrease over the previous year.
Does the...
That's electricity.
Right.
So that one says electricity, outside service, supplies, equipment, and machine maintenance.
Yeah, what was the total on that, 24,1?
24,1.
Yeah. I don't know what's gonna happen with that. This past month, which was an anomaly, it increased $1,200 a month.
Yeah, there,
Is that, do we know?
something happened when we did the switch over.
Okay, that's kind of what we figured.
For some reason, we're paying 16 cents from the supplier, which isn't even the supplier we should be getting. So I'm still following up on that and exactly what happened. We should have done a switch over on December 1st. And the billing, the supplier should be a different supplier than this. So on the bill's at a different rate that's on the bills. We should be paying, what was it, 9 cents, something like that? We're paying 16, which is why everybody's gonna see.
So everyone's gonna see that.
Well, everybody's gonna see that for this month. And my hope is that we'll get it corrected.
Okay.
Will we be paying those bills or?
So no change there.
No, but that's obviously...
That's
it
all based
fluctuates
on
and it's, yeah,
the
based-
town contracting. Okay. So then you have cruiser maintenance, line 50, funded at 11,000, which is level funded to last year. Are you doing okay with it this
Yep.
year?
Yep, seems to be fine.
Okay.
Last year I had a little bit left over,
Okay.
but not enough to cut it back again, so
Okay.
just keep it level.
But
It would be great, yeah.
The capital plan turnover, 2 cars a year, is still
Yep.
keeping this line
Yep.
down. Okay. And then fire chief. So we have 110,000 level funded.
Yeah.
So that's set, or are you under a wage?
Wage opener this year.
Okay. Okay. Next line is fire department clerical,
Yep.
line 52.
Same thing.
So is that, but that's wage and personnel, right?
Right.
Okay. So that's contractually obligated there. So fire wages, line 53 is 913,652,
Yep.
which is level funded to last year. And does that,
Part is under wage and personnel, part is contract.
okay,
And they have a wage opener also this year.
with the turnover of employees, you feel comfortable with that number with the turnover?
As long as whatever they give for an increase is factored into that.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I
just-
mean, that's what we've been saying today.
Just to be clear, I don't think that's level funded because we only did the program for half the year last year, correct? With the,
No, I think it's actually been, the additional people on,
Yes.
it's been a full year, it's been over
It
a
has
full
been a
year. Yeah, it's a year and a half now.
okay.
But, let me think about that again. I'm trying to think of what fiscal year we're in. So 2016, we changed the, so I believe that's based on a full, it was in like I think there was like a week or two, but it's
Okay.
fine.
So this changes with contractual obligations, but
Contractual and wage and personnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then line 54 is fire training, 58,831, which is level funded.
Right, except for the wages with,
So this wage related as well.
yeah. Partial wage related.
Okay. So under tuition on that, that covers call and full-time?
Yes, yep, and supplies.
Okay, next line is 55, fire expense, level funded at 30,000.
Yep.
Do you see any,
No, I think, it might be a little bit tight this year, but I think we'll be fine.
okay. And then line 56, which is fire station maintenance.
Same thing as the chief said, we pay the electric bill out of this, so that could,
Okay. Fluctuate depending upon the rate
Right.
that's signed by the town. Okay. And then line 57 is fire vehicle maintenance, 25,000.
right, we increased it a little bit last year, but at the end, I had to come back for a
Transfer.
line item transfer. It's tough again this year, but,
So with the ambulance that was replaced,
right, so we're hoping we will see some savings this year. We've put a lot of money into that ambulance in 6 months, just to keep it on the road, so hopefully that will,
is that really the only, is that the worst
Engine
piece
one.
of equipment that you had?
that was probably the biggest financial drain we had. The engine one is second. I remember last year, we transferred 9,000 in to take care of some of the issues with the exhaust
Yeah.
system. We continue to have a substantial problems with engine one, and on our capital plan this year, we're asking for money to rehab that truck.
Okay.
But right now, we're using it less because we're using the tower front run, so hopefully it'll be okay through the end of the year.
Okay. But this line
Is level funded.
possibly would be looking for a line item transfer, just at some point this year. We'll just mark that down. as
It's a possibility.
Okay. The next line is line 58, ambulance supplies.
Yeah.
It's level funded.
Yeah,
Is that-
there's no fat in that whatsoever, but I think that for this year.
So is level funded okay for this? Because I know last year when we
We
talked about
increased
it.
by a few thousand 2 years ago. I think, maybe next year we'll have to look at increasing, but I think we'll be okay for the rest of this fiscal
There's
year.
nothing coming down the pipe
And
for next year.
I don't
You can
see
foresee.
anything. We had put money aside for we had approved an article for IV pumps.
Yeah.
I thought there'll be some increase in supplies because we have to use special tubing and that type of thing. And the state has actually, they gave us an implementation date, and then the fire chiefs fought that because they didn't really see a need for it, and now the state has put that on hold. So we never purchased them. That money's still sitting in that article.
Okay. So that's line 58. And then line 59. So this is the ambulance
Billing software,
Yeah.
stamps, that type of thing.
So is that
Yep, yep,
contract fine with that one? That hasn't increased?
that's fine, yep.
Okay. So that's level funded.
And then,
So then department, so emergency management.
right,
So this is the big increase requested for salary and wages. Kim briefly mentioned it last time.
so something I put in there, and I talked to Melinda about it, I wanted to at least have a discussion about it.
Okay.
The chief and I both met, and we partner up with Plimpton and Kingston and open up a shelter
Yeah.
at Silver Lake if we have to. And we also have 7 other communities where we kind of like, Kim says we take 2 dates to the prom, but we have another group that we partner with. And what they're finding is that no one is able to get shelter volunteers. And I know when we spoke to, when a MEMA representative was there, and she said, what a lot of communities have had to start doing is paying town employees to be shelter volunteers. I could say that the last storm we had, no one had to open a shelter. We called around, we probably could have lined up 1 or 2 people. Chief Greno has 90 people who he has listed as, in Whitman, who he has listed as shelter volunteers and CERT volunteers, and out of 90 people, he had no one who said they could staff the shelter. So it's a problem that's happening everywhere. I know Quincy Fire Department, they've now eliminated trying to use volunteers because the training for them, one, they have to be vetted because they're going to be around kids, things like that, is an issue. And just, a lot of our volunteers tend to be elderly people who really can't come out in the storms is an issue. So what they're doing in Quincy is they're paying their firefighters to do the shelter. And we could probably do that and use money from the fire department to do that. However, the concern is that we're such a small department that our police officers and firefighters are actually going to be doing calls. So it's not like we have a big pool of off-duty personnel to draw from. So a lot of communities are starting to look at putting money in their budget to pay town employees to open a shelter in the event of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So we used the number of $9,000, just looking at a 5-day shelter opening. If we were to, this is all hypothetical exercise I went through, but if we had to pay to administrative staff overtime rate to open a shelter for 5 days, what would that look like? And that's when we came up with the 9,000 number. It is not something that we've had to do since I've been here. So in 4 years, the 4 years that I've been here, we've had 1 half-day shelter opening. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that,
Yeah,
Chief.
no, it's like the chief said, it's just that there's nobody out there, nobody volunteers for this stuff. We're calling it paid volunteers, but it's actually, like you said, town employees, and we'd have to pay them at their overtime rate, obviously, so that might give them a little more incentive to come in and do the work for us. So it's just one of those necessary evils at this point. I mean, we're obligated to, really set up a shelter if it needs to be, so we can't not do that. So it's one of those things that we need to.
So do you see that more as staffing, combined effort, or staffing in town? Like we
So we
talked
still have
about.
to have volunteers to open up the warming center, and all 3 towns are supposed to attempt to staff together the
high school.
the high school.
If we move the shelter to the high school, we'd have to send somebody over there.
Okay.
How do you get the word out for volunteers?
Well, we've advertised consistently for the CERT program. We have very little interest in that. Last year, we actually had 2 people that signed up for the training, but other than going through the training, they haven't been involved at all. And the problem with this CERT team, as much as we try, there's not a lot of things for us to keep them engaged. It's difficult to keep the call fire department engaged,
Right.
where we have limited, now we're keeping them much more engaged, but for the CERT teams, it's just a difficult thing.
And like the chief said, we just can't, go on Facebook and say, hey, we need a couple volunteers.
Right.
They need, like the chief said, they
Training.
need to be vetted and trained and stuff, so it'd be much easier to keep it in-house with town employees already. a pretty good handle on it.
So it's not something, when I put that number down, it's not a number that I envision that we maybe use once
Use
every
yearly.
That'd be the
8 or
worst
10,
case
you know,
scenario.
Yeah.
10 years or something. Maybe we'll use that, but,
Hopefully we never use it, but.
right.
So, that's 5 days?
So that would be a 5-day opening with 2 employees staffing the shelter.
24/7 for
Yeah.
5 days.
Okay. So, if we do have a budget crunch, then this is hypothetical. We could have you guys come back and talk about if we could budget for 2.5 days and then do a line item transfer
Right.
if we
It's-
have an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, we had to start the conversation somewhere, so it's what we're throwing out.
Okay.
Is 2 people practical?
For the most part, I think.
It's depending on the storm, and if we had, if the storm is severe enough where we'd have to have a shelter for 2 or 3 days, then 2 people might be thin for the number of,
Depends how many people we
Right.
have at the shelter too.
so everything's in flux during one of these storms. We just don't know how many people are gonna wanna come to the shelter, how long it's gonna last. You can't use the same 2 people, obviously, for 3 days in a row. You have to swap them out, and so it's really complicated for something that sounds simple.
Is this something that would get refunded? And I know how you both have filled out forms before. We have
So unless
bad
it hits the
storms.
top 90 percentile for storms, there's no reimbursement.
Okay.
So
Even if it was a state of emergency?
even if it's state of emergency. So 2015 storms that hit the top 90, and we got 68,000, I think, back for that storm. But every year, it seems like the plateau for that keeps getting higher and higher, so.
Sitting in bar higher.
Right.
Yeah. Now, is this something that's in the same developmental stages with the partner communities, or any of the partner communities that we are using currently funding?
Not that I'm aware. This really came from just a discussion at a emergency planning meeting, talking to the MEMA people and recognizing that we really don't have the volunteers. So that's why I don't know if any of them have actually included that in their budget this year, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's not something we really want to do. We'd like to be able to say we're going to have 10 people show up to volunteer, but it just does not seem to be the case. Not in any of our communities.
No, but it's your job to plan for the worst and pray for the best, so.
Hate to be the trendsetters, but, hopefully if the money's there, we'll never need it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it planned to also keep the volunteer pool open or close that?
Oh, no, we're definitely trying to keep it open.
Anybody that wants to, show up and get trained and be better to do this, be happy to do it.
Yeah, certainly something we do as a last resort, but
Well, Kim's shaking her head saying she's available for at least one
Well-
day out of 5.
she's right across, so we're just dragging her
I
across.
told you I
You don't have to pay her either, so it's
Yeah. I need a friend to help hang out with me a bit. But it's 2 people for the shelter, and then we need drivers, which, for the van and all those things, so. But if it's just a warming shelter, we don't require as much staff.
Okay. Any other issues that you guys see with buildings, vehicles?
Sounds like Jerry hit the buildings pretty hard already.
Yep.
Yeah, no, we're just picking away, mine at least, little things here and there. Just cost me $1,000 to replace some doorknobs.
The fire station, someday I think that discussion needs to be started about the fire station issues with it. There's not, I've looked at it a lot, every way I can, there's not a ton that can be done with the existing building. It's unfortunate back in 2000, I believe was when they did the last renovation, that they didn't dormer out the roof. There was in the blueprints, it actually shows that roof being completely dormant, which would have really given us a lot more
Space.
I mean, we're very, very tight for space. And there's a whole host of other issues, but I know we've had some big projects, so this year is not the right time to even start that discussion. But there's little
You're not
that
kidding.
But since we're here, there's
Say,
the lot
slide.
that we're currently on, the stream goes completely around the lot and out the backside with the septic system there, so it's not even like a building that can be really expanded on, other than dormering out the roof and giving some more square footage, but then the problem is the apparatus floor, the height of the ceiling, those types of things can never change, and we can't gain any more square footage on the apparatus floor, so someday I'll come back and see.
You can always
that.
take out the floor and
Put park stuff underneath, yeah. Like a park
And then the stream will be going through the building and around it.
Yeah, I'm pretty, see that we have water comes up through the floor, I'm pretty sure the water table is pretty low.
the one item that Jerry brought up about the floor drains. Do you have floor drains in your building too?
We have floor drains and all, like, because and it has to go into a holding tank that needs to be pumped, and that
Yeah.
pump, that all falls underneath his budget. So I'm not, and we do have that pumped probably once or twice a year, so I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't 100% sure what he was talking about. Maybe he was just talking about like snaking them out or cleaning them. I wasn't 100% clear as to what
Okay.
he was doing with the floor
Yeah.
drains.
He said he hadn't done it.
So he's. Do you have
I do.
where the garage is?
Oh, no, not the garage, the cell area. The cells have drains in the floor.
Those just go right into your regular
Those
septic.
go into the septic, so there's not an
Ours
issue,
have-
other than them,
Yeah.
because we don't do it very often, they get dry. They actually need to be flushed and, you know,
So is that something that the building department takes care of?
typically we haven't had to do anything with them that I can recall, other than, you know, keep them usable. That was part of the issue with the toilets in the cells, the stainless steel toilets. They deteriorate by not being used. You wouldn't think so, being all stainless, but they do.
Well, the moisture builds up on them, right? And never goes away.
It's got to do with the stuff in the water, the contaminants in the water. It settles on the bottom.
And starts to
pipes
eat
are,
away.
starts to eat away. We've actually, the handicap toilet was taken out and fixed probably 6 or 8 years ago. So I'm just waiting for the rest of them to start. But, you know, things like that.
Okay. Okay.
Nothing immediate.
Do you guys have any more questions?
All right.
Kim, do you want to say something? Because you're making that face.
No, I have to go up to Hops.
So the fire station's on the capital plan for next year, another debt exclusion for that.
See you in 20 years when we're done paying for
It
the
does
council
look
on
The
aging.
doors, the doors
They
do
look
look,
great.
I gotta say.
Yeah, they look great.
Okay, thank you guys.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got Sandy's update.
Want to go over mail and get
We
minutes
didn't have
first?
any mail. Do we have any minutes?
I sent
Yes.
read them.
I read the letter.
Well, there were minutes with it.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh.
Hold on a second.
Is this yours, Mel?
It's the tables.
Right.
Yeah, last year I could be counted on to bring one. This year we're just sharing them instead of printing out a bunch.
Sounds fine to me, as long as we can leave them here.
I didn't mean to hog it.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 22nd?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, passes. So, next on the agenda was revenue. But before we go there, we asked in last meeting to schedule a meeting with the schools. I talked to the superintendent, and talked to the school, the elementary school chair. They would be open to inviting us to their meeting on the 5th. They're starting at 6, so we could be on their agenda for 7. But we will not have Silver Lake's number at that point in time. So, I don't know what the feeling is of the board, if we should talk to them without having Silver Lake's numbers. I can tell you what I estimate Silver Lake's number to be, and that's close to $300,000, which means that we don't have any money left for anything. But that's just my first run assessment.
How far up, on your opinion, do you think they are from having that estimate for us?
They will have the estimated assessment at their February 8th meeting at Silver Lake. So I'm not sure how much going and having a meeting with them is going to do at this point in time without having that information to tell them we don't have any money left. And so I don't know if it makes sense to have a meeting with them after that.
I think personally, I'd rather have a sense from them. I mean, not that I don't trust your estimate, but if there's something jumps out that we don't know about, I personally would rather have concrete numbers on the table.
Okay.
But I'm open to whatever y'all think is best.
When is their next meeting after the 6th?
So so they meet the first Monday of the month.
So it would be March.
Yeah. Or we could try to see
I
if
mean, you can't ask.
we can ask them to come here after
Yeah.
that. And maybe we do that. We had also talked about having a joint meeting with Kingston after we had Kingston and Plimpton after having those numbers. I heard back from Kingston, she was going to ask the members, but I didn't get a response back on whether or not their date worked.
I think you're right that it doesn't make sense to meet with them until we have Silver Lake's number, but I think waiting till March, we're dragging our feet a little too much. So even if we invited the chair of the board just to come in, so we could give them a report as to where we stand with Silver Lake's number.
So do you want to put that on our agenda for the
Would be the 19th, because the 12th is a holiday, correct? Or is
No,
the 19th
the
a holiday?
19th is the holiday. So, do we have a joint, on the 12th, do we see if we can invite Silver Lake and Halifax Elementary and the superintendent to that meeting, if we can get, why don't we just invite them to that meeting?
I think that makes sense.
Okay, because we're not having Tri-Town.
Well, I don't know, but what I can tell Plimpton and Kingston is we've invited them to our meeting. If you guys can make it, we can have the big discussion like we've had in years past. And I think that would make sense. We'd have the assessment
Because we'd already
numbers.
have the school committees here.
Yeah. So, does that sound fine to everyone?
I think that makes
Sounds good.
the most sense.
Do you want to invite them to that and
So I'll
then
just change it.
see if they can come to the 12th?
Okay.
And then respond to the whole Silver Lake group that we'd like to. And Mary is still the chair in Kingston, but there's a new chair in Plimpton. I'm trying to find his name.
I'm just going to respond to the invitation that I already sent out for the school committees.
Nathaniel Sides is his name.
Nathaniel Sides
Sides,
for Plimpton.
yeah. It's...
And Mary's still Kingston.
Yeah. That's his email address at the bottom there. So Susan is no longer on
Okay.
FinCom.
Particular reason?
She was, oh wait, Nate's response was the 12th isn't a good day for them.
Oh, right.
So the following night. So is there another night that week that works for people? I know Linda's gonna be out that week completely. That's the week she's getting married. So,
Any night but Wednesday for me.
so the 12th is out. The 13th, because I said Tuesday or Thursday, Monday or Tuesday. The 12th is out. 13th is up, so we can ask, what's the next day? So Wednesday's up for you, Wednesday would be up for me that day.
It's Valentine's Day,
The
so
14th would get killed. How about the following week?
Following week is the
School-
19th.
School
right?
vacation, yeah,
Is
so
vacation.
the 19th is closed,
Yep.
but how about that week? To see if we can do the meeting. Or do you want to push it a whole, do you want to push it to,
That's vacation week though, right?
yeah, so that's going to be difficult, I'm sure.
yeah.
Do we want to push it to the 26th and see if they can come the 26th?
We have capital plan and Steve Hayward.
Well, at that point, we might as well go on the 6th.
Well, what time? For capital planning is
7:05 on the 26th.
Or we, I mean, we can push off capital plan, I mean, because Silver Lake matters more, the school's budget matters more than that. And it matters more than highway, even though that's going to be a
I
big
haven't
hit.
scheduled highway yet, but that's.
Do you want
where-
to, do you want to see if they can do the 26th or 27th?
Who?
Everyone,
School.
the school and
The other two towns.
finance committees, the 26th or 27th.
I'm fine with those days.
Is everyone fine with those?
Yeah.
Okay.
26 or 27?
Yeah.
I can't do
I was gonna say
All
Monday,
right, can't do the 27th.
Tuesdays. So I'm gonna go for the 26th.
So 26th or March 1st, right?
I can do that.
Do we want to move up the capital planning meeting then, or move it out?
Move it out.
I would move it up.
Because the Silver Lake's going to impact the decision of capital planning.
I would think so, depending upon what they have on their capital plan, because if they can't take it all from E&D, which has been what they've done previously, then if, I don't know, because their budget didn't contain capital, from what I saw. Sandy, when you looked at it, did you see capital on?
I do remember seeing the emergency replacing the circle field lights. That's. I don't remember
But it's
what
not
it was.
inside their operating
Yeah.
budget, so on a different sheet.
Right.
So I don't know how much E&D money they're planning on using. I talked to Joy about their budget. She said that it's approximately 4% higher than last year, but that's the total budget. Then the state numbers came out. State numbers show that their total net aid is actually decreasing.
So we're responsible for a
So-
larger percentage of
yes.
the budget.
Because the charter school reimbursement, they have more charter school students and they're receiving less for the reimbursement. So their total net state aid is decreasing. So that's about $8 million of their total budget. And that's not growing at the same clip that the towns are being asked to fund.
What was the reason for the state aid to drop?
Charter school participation.
So what happens with the charter schools, the student from the district goes to a charter school, they take with them their average $12,000
From the state?
from the money that should be going to Silver Lake from the state.
Right, it's going elsewhere.
So that money, the average number gets moved. But what happens is that normally the kids
The
that get
budget doesn't shrink by 12,000 at the same time.
Correct.
They're taking that $12,000 cost for that student, they're keeping it in the budget, and they're taking away that funding. So that 12,000 is growing 12,000 plus 4% with zero money offsetting it.
How can we insulate against that?
There's really no way to insulate against it because the way the funding works, they're taking students that cost the average. The way the charter school works is they get the average cost, but they take the kids that cost less than the average, and that's how they're making their funding, and that's how they make a profit off of it, because they're taking kids that aren't the average.
Because that
cost.
average is driven up by special needs, et cetera.
Right.
There are students that cost significantly less than $12,000 a year to educate, and students that are significantly more than $12,000.
So when you get,
Charter schools profit.
yes.
Yeah.
So when you see the number of kids increase to the charter school's getting that sum of money that it costs to educate those kids. But the region is left with kids that cost more to educate than the average. So what happens is that the average cost of Silver Lake actually increases. The student cost increases. So if they get the average student cost of Silver Lake, I'm not sure what the math is. I think there's a cap number to it.
Average cost is a function of all of Silver Lake's cost amortized over the number of students.
Yep. So if you take away kids that cost less to educate, that the district's using to basically pay for the added cost elsewhere because of the average, because the state requires you to spend so much money. When you look at the minimum net spending, there's a minimum net spending that occurs for Silver Lake too. So you have, let's see if I can bring up the email. You have a minimum net spend. You have a minimum net spend, which is Halifax is responsible, Plimpton's responsible for, and Kingston's responsible. We have to spend that money no matter what. No matter if the cost was less than that, that's what we have to give the district. So that number, I want to say was about, so the numbers for net charges. So you have, last year's number was $7,883,099. This year, from the governor's budget's number, $7,821,364. So there's your net decrease there. And then the FY19 preliminary numbers, Halifax minimum contribution is $3,373,178. Kingston's number is $7,449,145. And Plimpton's number is $1,758,395. A total of $12,580,718. And we have a net, so the chapter 70 aid, even though we don't get the whole amount, is factored into the net school spending. So the chapter 70 number is $8,120,949, and the minimum net spending for Silver Lake is $20,701,676. So it's even worse when you think about what's going on, because you're receiving a net of $7,821,364, and the state's telling you that you're actually getting $8,120,000. So that $300,000 difference, the towns have to make up. So their budget came in right around 25 million. Did you include that
In today's
in
sheets.
the budget?
No, she level funded it, I think. Silver Lake assessment.
That's right here in the folder. Just trying to get to the page where the numbers are. So their total budget is 25,540,155.02. So they're $4.8 million higher than the minimum net spend. So the state says that they have to spend $20,700,000, and they're spending $25,540,000. Bad when you can't read your own handwriting. Did you find it?
It's in the education
It's in
section?
the education section, about halfway through. No, that's Halifax Elementary, so.
It's gonna be after the elementary.
Yeah. So this line here is their total. So their number says they're going up
7%.
Yeah. But that's not really, it's not, that's their total budget, but the amount that the towns have to pay is increasing a lot more than that, because we see a decrease in the state aid. So if you take their,
Did our percentage contribution also go up?
no, down by 0.1%. So basically take that million plus the decrease of 60,000, call it, and that's what has to get assessed out to the towns. And we know that's above the minimum net spending, so we know the proportionality that's gonna be sent out at. So it's gonna be 30, I include that number? I want to say it was 32.0 for us, 12.5 for Plimpton, and 55.5 for Kingston, or thereabouts. So 32% times the million gives you 300,000. So it's not exact, and it doesn't include the shared cost differential and their income that they have coming in, but their income isn't increasing faster than this 4% that they're asking for. So just looking at the overall budget, we don't have any room left. You've got, from the numbers from Sandy tonight, 185 for the Council on Aging building. Call it 90,000 there for the fire suppression. So on the fire suppression, we had a meeting this week and discussed that the approved cost at town meeting was 977,000. Depending upon what we get back for a bid, we could see that increase to 1.1 million or 1.3 million. And that's just the numbers that have come out from that meeting. The architect said that he doesn't think that it'll cost the 1.3. He thinks that we'll see a lower number, and he had West Borough's replacement maybe that he talked about that came in way lower than what was. Okay. That came in way lower when they did a fire suppression system. So there's,
The numbers he had were estimates from their estimator.
and then in their
and
bid.
They said that he's historically high. So if, looking on the optimistic side, the bids come in lower, we could be already.
We could be okay at the 977.
Yeah. It's just waiting till those numbers come in to know for sure.
And we're not gonna know those numbers until a few weeks before town meeting, right, Charlie?
That's the plan, yeah, because bids are only good for, let's say, 30 days normally. So as much as, we'd like to see, if everything was here ready to go, sure, we'd say, well, we'll go out to bid. Well, it's either then hold a special town meeting or wait until May. And originally, I thought we would need to do the former, but I think the timing is still good enough that if we can do as much planning ahead of time, get the bids in those 30 days ahead, that the contractor can line everything up and still be able to begin on June 20th.
So, just roughly from the numbers here, the 977 is calculated out to be $90,373, and if it's 1.3 million, it looks like it would be 121,000 thereabouts. Those were the numbers that we talked about at that meeting. So that's an additional $30,000 that we need to be aware of that would be operating budget for this year, if that comes in that high. So you're looking at 185, 90 plus 30, it's 305 out of the 601,000 that we know we have in excess capacity.
Well, and then add 320 for Silver Lake. Makes it 6.25, and we're over.
Yeah.
Before the elementary.
Well, from where's the number from the spreadsheet? So if we look at revenue, that prop 2.5 is 390. Estimated new growth is 105. Call it 106 because it's enough. So 496 plus 601. So it gives you 1,097,000. So take away the 305. You're at 792. Take away 400,000 for special needs and the Halifax elementary school budget. You're at 392.
Take away 320 for Silver Lake.
You're at 72,000.
I'm gonna take away 98.5 for a 2% wage increase.
So those are just what? So debt payment,
Yep.
elementary school, special needs, and Silver Lake. So 3 items, basically, have eaten up $1.1 million. So when we're looking at the budget, if Silver Lake votes that budget and either the other 2 towns can afford it, we're hurting.
Well, I think it's more likely that Clinton's gonna have a problem.
I think Clinton's gonna have a problem too. But they have excess capacity. So I don't know whether or not their town meeting would support that number or not. And I don't know if after we get their number, if we meet and say, this is the number we think we can live with, tell them that. Give them a number and say, this is what we need you to be.
Well, I think also, in this time, Clinton and Kingston with their Silver Lake numbers versus, as you mentioned, access capacity, is that they need to, one hopes they're doing the same sort of thing we're doing right now. We don't know what their elementary school budgets are like, we don't know
I know that Kingston's special needs number was like $600,000 increase at their elementary school.
Okay, so there's, I mean, they may not just be able to gun on Silver Lake, they're gun for the same things that we
Right.
are. And in that same boat that we are. So you may find a more receptive audience, excess capacity or not, to,
I think the finance committees might be in agreement, but I'm not, this is just my take after being the liaison for a number of years to that board. They see me come in and the response is, well, that's just Gordon saying no.
well, and that's fine. And other people are going to have to say the same thing, maybe in a different way. But I think it's, on our end here, it's, at some point we say, the selectmen, who I think will understand enough of the budgets to be in general agreement. There may be specific things that they're disagreeing, but we understand the position we're in. That if we can go unify the town meeting and say, this is where it is, folks. We're gonna, something has to give. Here are the basics that we must fund, like special ed. And this is how much money we've got. We can't say yes to everybody, and as a result, here are the numbers we're recommending. If they say something different, I mean, I don't know what this. They can go to any budget they want, but then if we have to deal with an unbalanced budget, then we'll deal with that.
So I don't know what sense it makes to go through line by line this week, next week. I don't think it does.
Until the big drivers are decided, I don't think it makes any sense to go through.
I don't even know what sense it makes to go through level funded items.
No, at this point we can't, because we're already in a deficit.
So does it make sense? Do we have anyone scheduled for next week?
No, we had the schools, but now they're out, and we don't have anybody for the 12th because we're not having a tri-town meeting. So if you want to start filling in with...
I don't know if it makes sense if I go to the elementary school meeting next week and you guys schedule other departments to come in.
Well, the budget, I would actually recommend the morning go. The budget hearing is that Monday.
Okay.
And if the problem, whether it's in Silver Lake or Halifax Elementary, is they think Gordon's there by himself, we just post funds committees over there. It doesn't mean you have a meeting with them the same way you're asking them to come over, but you're there for the budget hearing.
All right. Is that all right with everyone to post to meet there?
Yeah.
If you can't come, you can't come. But
Next Monday?
Next Monday to meet 7 o'clock at their budget hearing.
well,
Where's that?
it's posted for 6 for the budget hearing.
Okay, 6.
Wait,
Okay.
And I checked with Boy, I'll check with Boy one more time, but I understand there's both budget hearings, one on Monday here, and one next Thursday, not this Thursday, on Thursday, over so late, we're both posted for 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kendra, could you just, in your weekly email to remind us,
Yeah.
note that it's 6 o'clock?
No problem. Joy did send me an email, and it did say that theirs was at 6 o'clock on Monday.
Yeah, I'll
Do
make a
you-
note.
6
but-
o'clock on
Do
Thursday.
you want to post us for the Thursday too? I'm not sure how many people can go to the Silver Lake meeting. But if we're posted for that, then we're covered.
You don't lose anything by posting.
Sure. And it's at the,
Silver Lake High
usually
School.
Silver Lake, well,
The
Silver Lake
library.
High School on Thursday, and Monday is usually in the library, is it
Yes.
still?
Where it's all
Has
like-
been. So
At-
Monday
Oh, in
night
Halifax?
will be
Okay.
Halifax in the library.
All right. I can do 6.
And then the 12th, we don't have anybody scheduled.
Nope.
Don't know if it makes sense to.
I think one of the things I need to do, work with Cindy can work with me, she's the one with the information right now, with you, is to give the board a slightly more highlight and say, here are some speaking points, So again, it's not just the finance committee, it's the selectmen also speaking to it.
Are they meeting tomorrow night?
No, because that's a fifth Tuesday.
Okay.
So they're not meeting next week either, because it's only first Tuesday. We've got 5 Tuesdays this month.
Okay.
But if I can give them some speaking points,
Okay.
and I don't think they're gonna say, you must cut your budget, but they're gonna present, here's the reality, something's not going to be done. Whether it's partially you, partially some lake, partially other departments, whatever, but we want to tell you ahead of time, it's not some situation that whatever budget you can do, send in and maybe do a few nips and tucks and everything's great. Well, it's not working that way this year. And when I tell you what to do or what to cut, it's simply,
Here's the function of the math.
yeah. So don't be upset if you, in fact, find out a month from now, a month and a half from now, that the number that's being recommended is going to be not to your liking.
And then just quickly, so 390 is 2.5%. So you're gonna see 2.5% increase. The debt reduction, well, not debt reduction, but the roof and repairs is 414,000, which is about 2.5%. And 600,000 is about, what's that, 3.75%? So 2.5, 2.5, 3.75 is 8.75% times 5,500 is the average tax bill. That didn't work out. 5,500 times 0.8. So $481.25 should be about the average increase on the next tax bill. Because of the operating and the debt. And that's what the average is going to be, $500. So, that's what we are looking at for reality. Anybody else got anything to say?
Nope.
Sandy,
My mom
Joe?
always said, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything.
Is there any other line items that we've kind of glanced over that we haven't talked about?
We know there's going to be a little bit of a decrease in the health insurance line.
Okay.
Not a huge decrease,
Right,
but a little bit.
We've been talking about 10%, it looks like it won't be any more than 8.
Okay.
It might be 7, something like that. Even though the industry trend is 10, we're doing better than that. And so we've got a little bit of a surplus to play with, and we're going to apply some of that surplus. So we'll see how things come out. But for us, that's $20,000, let's say, for 8% instead of 10%, just roughly.
Yeah.
Every percent's maybe $10,000 because we're spending about close to $1 million
Yep.
in health insurance by itself. But I'll take whatever news I can get. The state aid numbers, I don't know how much you all talked about them, but I would say there's absolutely no reason to think we're going to get anything more than what's there. I believe the Halifax Elementary School number, at least the way I read it, was more than the minimum, more than the $20 per student that every school district at a minimum got. So even if they raise it to, let's say, 25 or 30 or something like that, I don't think that number's going to budge for us.
Yeah.
And what was called the lottery aid, is just unrestricted aid now, is what it is. I mean, basically the legislature and governor said, whatever the state revenues increase, that's the same percentage that's going to increase. They plug that in, and that's pretty much a done deal.
But that's not a large sum.
No, I mean, though at this point,
Oh, yeah, anything is going to help.
Right.
yeah,
So I did include the cherry sheet information on there in that packet. Our bottom line went up about 67,676, which isn't huge, but it is something. The other thing, I was talking to Christine today, she said right now they have their circuit breaker numbers in at 55%. She thinks that they will go up. She says she felt pretty comfortable they might go up to 60% reimbursement on the circuit breaker. That will get us a little something on that end. But we can just take a hard look at all the numbers again, but
Yeah, so, I mean, if the numbers come through, then we'll have to dig into everyone's budget and see, and ask to have I don't know, a meeting with the selectmen and sit down and see which lines are really the most important lines for the town.
Charlie, what caused the insurance to decrease? What was it?
We're just doing better in terms of claims. It's not decreasing per se, obviously, it's still going,
Just not increasing as much.
as we expected. So the industry rate is 10%. If you just went with that, what Mayflower had been saying is, telling all the cities and towns in the group, for fiscal 19, assume a 10% increase over fiscal 18. But the funding ratio is running around 92%, 93% right now. And so that we're going to have a little bit of a surplus at the end of the year that we can use towards next year's rates. It's a little bit of a game plan because it artificially decreases the rate for a year, which can run into trouble because eventually things go back to normal and suddenly you've got a much larger rate increase. But I don't think there's no support for staying at 10%, let's put it this way. So they'll use, so I think that the proposal from their consultant was basically, in our case, it's an 8% increase. The reason I'm saying that is almost all of our people are on the plan that's more expensive, and that is, while it's running a surplus, is not running as large a surplus for those particular plans as the other plans in the program. So there might be a split rate increase, that some of the plans go up that 8% I mentioned, and some of them go up 6.5%, for instance. Because almost all of our people are in the 8% plans, that's the number I would use. It's been a good year. I mean, last year, they were running a deficit, and that's why we saw the rates increase so dramatically. The year right now, we went up, I think it was 19%, something like that.
Better than the GIC.
the other thing about the revenue number that I did take out the 70,000 that is estimated from the local options meals tax because we had said we were going to use that
For free cash.
So
Oh, yeah,
I
capital.
took that out
Okay,
to put it aside for the capital, and that is reflected in that number.
okay.
The number that you see on the revenue sheet uses last year's state aid, takes out that 70,000, and that's it.
Okay.
So right now, it's a little conservative what that's showing, but
Okay. So did everybody get a chance to read the letter that Kendra typed up for Jerry? I'll just read it. Dear Jerry, the members of the Finance Committee would like to extend our sincere thanks for your service to the town of Halifax over the past years. The talent and expertise you have contributed is appreciated and important to our town. We hope you found your experience to be personally rewarding. It takes a group of special people such as yourself to not only work for the town, but to volunteer for committees and unselfishly give of their time to help our town continue to be a fabulous one in which to live and raise a family. Thank you again for your service to the town of Halifax. It has been a pleasure to work along with you. Sincerely, all of our names. Sound
Very
good?
good.
Thank you very much, Kendra.
Thanks, Kendra.
I'll sign under my name and pass it around. So for the agenda for across the street, I would just post the meeting with them, revenue discussion, and any budget updates that we receive. And the 12th, we'll have a better picture of what's going on. Oh, and agenda for the Thursday night would just be Silver Lake budget. Okay. Anyone get a motion?
I believe it's Diane's motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
8:28.
So is that to the Happy Dragon?
I will second that motion.
All right. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.